Okay, so I am officially recording here now. Kev, just to test audios, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
I actually had leftover bread and tea.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, aren't you fancy?
yeah. Just
Leftover bread? What's leftover bread?
I went to see my
Goodness.
mom the other day, and she gave me bread and had leftover bread, so that's what I ate.
I like bread. Did you put butter or anything on it?
Just plain. I'm a plain kind of guy. I don't like butter, anything like that. I just
Ew.
I mean, I do like bread. I see. Are you drinking tea or coffee right now?
I just got both. So I got my Yeti here with coffee, and I got my tea here. So I figured come prepared with both. You should see me when
Extra energy.
I go to a restaurant. I'm the kind of guy that orders a coffee, a water, and orange juice. Like I'll have like all those drinks in front of me, a beer.
All
Just
those
in
things
case.
drinking. So
Orange
do you
juice
drink
beer.
them all like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of the other thing, or do you kind of drink one and then drink another?
Yeah, kind of like you kind of mix it up. You kind of a little bit at a time, I guess.
I'm not a coffee drinker, so I can't. But I can't imagine like coffee with orange juice and then beer is like a very
maybe,
good.
maybe not. Okay, maybe that's for the morning. So that's more
Also,
like,
I just thinking of that gives me heartburn. So that's what 33 is about.
that's all right, perfect. That's not in the podcast.
No, yeah, it's fine. All right.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen, Captain. All right, Dan. Do you wanna?
And in 5, 4, 3. Hey, everybody. Glad you're here. That's only funny for Danielle because usually I'm like, and we're live. Real, yeah. Anyway, so here with Kevin. How am I pronouncing your last name, sir?
It's Fonash.
Fonash, Kevin Fonash, videographer or filmmaker. Actually, what do you prefer, term wise, for what you do?
It really doesn't matter. I mean, I think for a while, like a lot of people got off on that. Videographer was a term that no one really used anymore. It was kind of like getting away from that. I really don't mind it. I mean, that's what we do. We do videography. I tend not to use the term that much. I use the word film a lot. I use filmmaker.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a videographer.
Well,
Cool.
for the
All right.
purposes of today's conversation, guys, we are talking about wedding videography, cinematography, filmography, all the things. But it's basically videography, right? Insert whatever trendy word you want to put there.
Exactly.
And Kevin is an awesome person. I've worked with a bunch before. Dan's worked with before, and I'm so excited to get into this because we have been wanting to bring on a videographer for quite some time. Dan
Yep.
has promised to be on his best behavior.
Hey, hey.
I got my boxing gloves on.
We'll
Duke it out a little.
Yeah, young
But-
rippersnapper.
Yeah, but like we're gonna get into this because sometimes there is a weird dynamic between photography and videography, and Kevin and Dan are both great examples of what it means to be a team player and to work well with others. And I'm very excited.
I think that's the key right there, though. Like, I love working with videographers when we're all on the same team, right? Like, we're all there to crush it. It's when there's like a balance of power that all of a sudden somebody steps outside this like realm of like, hey, like let's both do this and work this together. Like, let's both get our own shots and all that kind of stuff. I've never had an issue. Well, actually, I had one issue with the videographer only this past year, but every other time, like, it's awesome. We just all want to crush it, you know?
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it can be that kind of cat and mouse game where you're like you said, you're trying to get the best stuff. But ultimately, you're there for the couple, and that's the
Make it
the
happen.
reason. Yeah.
So, Kevin, before we dive too much into this conversation, because I already feel like we already have so
We're
much we
already
want
getting
to
into
like, will you kind of give us a little introduction about who you are, where you're from, what you do, if you like Harry Potter, and how much you like Harry Potter?
Score some brownie points with it. Yeah. So my name's Kevin Fonash. I've been, ever since I was little, interested in, video and pictures, photography, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm originally from the Poconos, and I live in Scranton now.
Woo, woo.
And yeah, Scranton.
And for those listening, I'm from Scranton originally too. So for our Office fans out there, you know what's up.
Oh yeah.
Scranton,
Yeah.
what? The Electric City. You live
Yeah, I
right.
actually-
You're like right in Scranton now, right, Kev?
I live in
That's awesome.
North Scranton. Yeah.
Very cool. And you've been doing this for how long? outside of forever?
Yeah, so I started back in, I think it was around 2006. I started doing this.
Wow.
So yeah, I've been doing it for 12, 13 years now. Kind of started in college, freelance with a different company at the time, and then moved to Scranton for a job. And when I was there, I was still freelancing for a little bit, and somewhere around like 2011, 2012, there was really this like revolution of wedding filmmaking. So a lot of new cameras were coming on the market, a lot of different styles. People were really starting to look at it differently, and I really started to kind of be attracted to that. So I started my own business in 2013, right here in Scranton. So, and then ever since, just been doing it up here, and yeah, it's been great.
Awesome.
So what do you think, as we're getting into like the nitty gritty and talking about videography in relationship to couples and why they need it and that kind of stuff? What do you think like strengths of videography are? Like, talking to couples specifically now, what do you think those strengths of videography are, and why couples out there planning their wedding need a video?
Right. So going back to some of the trends and like what I've seen in the last couple of years is I really think that videography has become just as important as photography. And I think a lot of people are starting to see that. So I think with the strengths of that is the two kind of complement each other. So while great photography is super, super important, so is videography, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So you can kind of immerse yourself in the moment. There's a lot of audio elements with that. There's a lot of reaction shots, and you're focused on what's going on, but then there's people next to you, doing their thing and reacting to that moment.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things like that you don't get with photography. But again, that's not to say that photography is less important by any means. But I think that there's definitely a trend that's going towards that.
Yeah, full disclosure, it's like I definitely had a unique perspective on videography before our wedding, right? Like, and I'm biased because I'm a photographer, and I'm thinking like, oh, like I'm just being a purist. I don't need a videography or whatever. And now looking back on it, I was just being naive, right? Like I feel like I really did myself and my future kiddos a disservice by not like there's two things that I miss right now. One, I wish we had at least a video of our ceremony, right? Like you just can't get that back, right? Like there are these little moments that we have, and I love the photographs in our album and everything, but like I wish that there was like a record of like my wife's Aunt Judy speaking, or or like the priest who presided over it is a friend of ours, and I photographed his ordination a couple weeks prior, and also things like my cousin's best man speech. My cousin Ryan's not like a super emotional guy usually, and like there's just these strengths that like you said, especially when you combine the audio component of it, and it's just like, yeah, I want that. I don't care if it's like doesn't sound the same, or if I'm not like lost in it the same way as I was when I was in the wedding day, because I hear that all the time, that like, oh, it's like when you go back and visit something, it's not the same, right? But it's like, no, I still want that. I want that record of it. I want that exactly the way it was, and I want to remember how amazing that was. I think that is definitely a strength of videography, to be able to say like, yes, this is exactly what it was, and I can revisit it exactly as it was, even if it's to help me pull me out of a time that is not good, or I just can get lost in that moment again.
Sure. Yeah,
I love
definitely.
that. I think, so Kev, you touched on this initially, but I want to unpack it more. You had said like the trends with videography. Are there, because you've certainly seen it on the videography front. We did a whole episode at the beginning of this season about what just in general wedding trends for 2019, 2020. But have you seen trends with videography too? And are there like things coming up? Like, is the whole trend of videography going to be that the video is actually upside down and played in reverse? Because to me, that seems really artistic and cool.
I don't know about that, but
no. All right. Too far out in time.
Yeah. Well, if we back up a little bit, so, wedding videos back in maybe the early 2000s, something like that, that was a lot of what we call documentary edits. So it's pretty much just, the entire ceremony, the entire key points of the reception in its entirety, played, very minimal editing, not very creative. Whatever happens, and just kind of maybe one camera, two cameras. It's a documentation of your day. It's not.
I have to interrupt here because my sister got married in 1999. We have, I think it's like 4 VHS tapes of the day, and it is just hours upon hours of the day that sits in my parents' basement now because they don't know what to do with it. But I could totally attest that is exactly, it was like long, we'll never watch it. I mean,
little shaky.
That's harsh. Yeah, it's rough.
Was it
for
the guy
sure?
with like the shoulder cam?
100%.
Yeah.
Love that guy.
Yeah. You wouldn't have liked this guy. But anyway, I just want to jump in because that is totally that was 99. Totally true, for sure.
Exactly, and that's definitely what it was. The big cameras, Dan, like you said, like just the cameras back then, the quality just wasn't up to par. And then somewhere around late 2000s, the turn of 2010, like I was saying before, 2011, that's when those like music video style highlight films really started to come out. So it was less focused on the 2-hour, 3-hour documentary edit, and it really was like maybe a one song highlights, and it was kind of like a cheesy song. It was like maybe a song, your favorite song you heard on the radio or something. Like, there was minimal audio elements added to that. So what I mean is it was basically just the song, it had lyrics in it. And that was a new trend. So people were really, that kind of is what jump started what we see today. And then as we fast forward a couple more years to really where we are today is, there's a focus on creating an actual film. And what I mean by that is, there's so many different elements mixed into that film that really makes something really compelling and tells the story of your day. So, just the music choices, it really doesn't have lyrics. It's a lot of like cinematic music. It's very, very audio heavy. So, portions of your speeches, your parts of your ceremony, maybe there's letter readings or card readings in the morning, just interviews with the couple and stuff. So there's so many different things, sound effects and if you're at the beach, you're really hearing those waves crash. If you're you're in the forest, you're hearing the birds chirp. It really brings you back to that day, and so that's really what we're seeing today.
That's such a good way to put it. I never even thought about it like that. Because I've certainly watched videos and exactly what you're describing. Like if it's a beach wedding, you're hearing those beaches, the waves crash. And I've never thought about it as a way to like bring me back to that moment. But that's so true. I mean, it immediately puts you in that space. The same way as like, smell memory and all these different things. But that audio memory of it, what a great way to just like zing you right back into that space and into that world. Is that audio that you capture like that day, or are you pulling from like have you gone to a beach and just recorded like waves crashing? Because that makes sense.
Sometimes it is. Yeah, sometimes it is. Sometimes it's not.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, we try to match it up as much as possible, but there is sometimes that I'll be editing and I need like, I don't know, say I need like some crickets or something. And I go on this website and there's all these people, have recorded different sound effects, and it'll say like where it's from. So it's in like the Netherlands or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like, they'll have no idea. A cricket sounds like a cricket, but it's funny how, sometimes those things, there's people talking in the background and stuff. So it doesn't really,
makes sense.
You have to get
cool.
it later.
Yeah. It's funny. You said sound effects and I was like, man, have you ever like tried to put any like real fun ones in, like, whoop, boo, or like boing, or it's like ridiculous.
Nothing like that.
That's why I laughed a little bit when you said that. I was like, man, like you got to find a way to like.
You're thinking of those kind of, I guess Foley is the correct thing for it.
And now everybody knows why Dan's not a videographer, because all of the videos he edit would have like these insane sound effects on top of sound effects.
All right. So getting back to like, I feel like you talked a little bit about this as you were going through, but what do you think, like, the elements of a great film for a couple is?
So I think that, like I was saying before, it encompasses a lot of different elements of not just filmmaking, but different parts of the day. So, we like to start just like you, Dan, early in the morning. So there's so much to capture before the ceremony even begins.
Yep.
I mean, there's detail shots to take. There's, we encourage them to write letters to each other and then do a voiceover of that letter. We might do a quick interview with the couple and say, hey, tell us how you met, tell us about the engagement. There's, maybe gifts for the parents or gifts for each other. The bridesmaids made you a scrapbook, things like that. So all those different events or different elements of the day, we really try to encourage those different things. And then each one just kind of, just allows you to capture that moment right there. So that's, to me, what makes a really great wedding film, is when you have things like that. Maybe at the ceremony they give a great homily at a church, or maybe you do your own vows, great speeches. Maybe the dad gives a speech. It really, a lot of the stuff comes down to the audio and just capturing really good audio.
So that really customizes like each film to each person. Before, it's like, a videographer might use the same song for a bunch of different people. So now it's like, as you're like, and maybe this is getting into the nitty gritty, but like, as you're like going through the day, are you like listening for those things that you can kind of pull out and like highlights, like, because with me, it's like everything's so visual, but are you also listening throughout the day to those like audio cues and then putting them in there and like building the story that way? Or like, what's your approach, I guess, in that sense?
Yeah. So yes and no. I guess throughout the day, I'm subconsciously like always listening and looking around and seeing what's happening and things like that. And I think that's what really makes a good videographer, is when you're aware of your surroundings and you're not just focused on what's happening right now, but kind of like what I was saying before, look next to you. I bet the mom's in tears, or during the vows, somebody's, crying or someone's laughing. So we focus a lot on reactions too, not just what's the action happening. But to answer your question, Dan, like, so for instance, if, say the bride has a special pin on her bouquet with her grandmother's or something like that, I can get a shot of that and that's fine. And I might just put it in there somewhere. But if I can get an audio element with that and I can have her talk about that and say, hey, tell me why you have this on your bouquet. Like, who were these grandmothers? Like, who did they mean to you, and why are they special? And then that just develops that storyline right there. Yeah. And that's what it really comes down to, is that storyline. And storytelling, it's a term that's really thrown around a lot, and it's kind of a buzzword type thing. But if you do it right, you can really make a great storyline with great musical elements and just mix all those things together so when you watch something, you're like, it brings you right back to that moment, and you're like, wow, this is a really great time keepsake for me.
How many times have I said on this podcast, whenever you're searching for a videographer, if you can go to their website and watch a complete stranger's video and feel something, for me, it's always if I cry, I'm a crier. But like, if you can feel something, that should tell you their strengths and what they do really well. And I want to talk about this more, Kev, because I've worked with you. I've also worked with other videographers. I know, shocker, but it's true. I do. Crazy. Not many, but yeah. I keep Kevin very busy pretty much, but what, but you, in the same sense of everybody in the wedding industry, we all have our different styles and our different ways of approaching things, right? Me as a planner, I'm very much about the logistics, whereas other planners are more about the design. And with videographers, like, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I think there's some that have a similar approach to you, where they're really like producing and like planning out these moments. And then there's others that are a little bit more of like a fly on the wall, and just kind of responding to the action. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, great point. So I like to say that we're kind of a mix of the two. Kind of like there's certain times throughout the day that you do need to, you do need to be a fly on the wall, and just let that moment happen. So, for instance, the first look, like, I like to I'm big on setting them up and making sure the background looks good and the audio looks good. And, when they turn around, this is what's going to happen. But then once that moment begins, I just like to let it happen. Right. Exactly. And you get all those raw, natural responses and moments right there. We like to plan ahead of time. So obviously when Danielle's the planner, it's a lot easier because she has so many details and her timelines are 300 pages.
In a good way. In a good way.
In a good way. In a good way. No, it is. So I have to ask less questions to the couple. But we're really big on tell me everything that's going to happen throughout the day.
Yeah.
Just so we can kind of stay one step ahead. And like you were saying, some videographers, some companies, they are like that fly in the wall where they're just reacting to everything. But if you can have a solid timeline and you're really proactive and staying 3 steps ahead and you know what's coming and you can plan so you get the best lighting, the best composition, the best audio, and you really develop that's what takes it to the next level. And that's when you can charge more and that's where budgets come in and things like that. And that's what really kind of separates some different companies out there.
Yeah.
And of course, and there's nothing wrong with the other way. I'm not, too negative or anything.
And
everyone has different style.
Yeah, and as with every time we have a guest on this show, Dan and I, which I guess we didn't really say at the top of this show, but like this is Kevin's way of doing things, and there's different ways, and this is why we bring people on, because we like showing you guys that maybe the videographer you're talking to has a much different approach, and you're hearing what Kevin's saying and going, oh, but like that to me is resonating a bit more, or you're hearing what Kevin's saying in the opposite. So this is again, as with everything, it's just about like getting more information and so that you can make a decision. My darling ringers, that works best for you.
So I want to go back to something you said before, Kevin, about like the products that you're delivering now. So, previously it was VHS tapes of just like, here's everything that happened in a linear format, done, there it is. And then you talked about like the music video kind of thing. So what are you seeing now? Just typically like not like what are your final products, but then also what are some of the other things about the industry that people are receiving when it comes to their final product? Is it just like, the highlight video? Is there like a longer cut, and what are those terms that we might need to know?
Yeah. So in terms of, and that's a great question when you're hiring a videographer to ask. Good job, Dan. So, so there's a lot of confusion out there. There's, I think with photography, it's more, to bring it back to you, Dan, it's a lot more streamlined, I guess I could say. Like people are more familiar with the terms.
Big time.
They know what an album is. They know how many pictures are in an album, things like that. Whereas in video, for videography, there's highlight video, there's feature film, documentary edit, raw footage, teaser, trailer. There's so many terms out there. And to top it off, each company calls each thing differently too. So so it's a little tricky to navigate, but in a nutshell, I guess, a highlight film is usually anywhere from like 3 to 10 minutes long. For us, we found the sweet spot is like 7 to 10 minutes or so. And that's basically the highlight of your day. So, whether it's one song or 2 songs, it just encompasses all those different elements throughout the day. It's the highlight. And then the documentary edit is like what you were saying before with the linear, full ceremony, full reception, full main events, like that. So these days, a lot of companies are doing more of just the highlight film. And the doc edit is kind of going to the wayside a little bit. So, but it's important to know what you're receiving, right?
Right.
So
you always want to go into it with the right expectation, right? Because
exactly.
Yeah, because the last thing you want, and like you as a business owner, is for your clients to receive something and be like, oh, this is not what I was expecting, because then it's a much different conversation that you need to have. So do you think that they're getting away from like the much longer things because people just aren't watching them? Like, to me, because a 7 to 10 minute long video in one aspect is like, well, that's kind of short. But then the other is like, well, no, it's kind of long. Like, if I go back to like when I watch videos on YouTube, that's my like guilty pleasure. Fun, yeah. It is like a 10 minute video is a hefty long video.
Yeah. Right. And exactly. So, and it goes back to knowing what you're going to receive.
Right.
So if you are, paying X amount of dollars for a 5-minute film, 5-minute highlight film, that's great. But, you might not be getting your full speeches or your full ceremony, your full vows. You might just be getting a 5-minute highlights of your 10-hour, 12-hour day. And that's fine, but you just need to know what those expectations are. So as far as, I think they are getting away from the doc edits a little bit. I think we still provide them just because I think it's important to have all those things, and we're there anyways to film it. So we usually, we're there shooting it anyway. But yeah, I think it's really kind of going to just the short format.
So there's like a couple other terms you threw out there. I think one of them was like the highlight reel and then the doc edit. So like highlight reels like this, 3 to 10 minute thing. And then you've got like this whole like massive, linear couple hour long one. Was there like a feature length? Like what's that? Is there like a 30-minute option? That's
Yeah, some company, they do like a 15, 20-minute, 30-minute option. That's kind of like a mix between a doc edit and a cinematic highlights. So there's that. Some places, we do teasers. So we also give like a 60-second teaser. Yeah. Those are cool for like Instagram and
it lets the couple sort of share without like sharing the whole thing, but I think it's fun.
And it's like a week or two after your wedding, so it's everyone's hyped up and excited and stuff. So some places do that. They do trailers, kind of the same thing. Raw footage is that's usually if you don't get a documentary edit, they might give you raw footage, and that's essentially just like the raw files straight out of the camera, no editing. Unsynced audio, no color, not color graded. So I always discourage raw footage just because unless you know what you're doing, it's just a big jumbled mess of folders and clips and everything like that don't really make any sense until they're edited together.
Gotcha.
But it's better than not having a doc edit in my opinion.
Right.
So.
What about like how you're delivering them? Are people still like putting DVDs into DVD players and that kind of stuff, or is it all just like them on their computer? How does that work now?
Yeah, Dan, so great question. So, DVDs, Blu-rays, they're starting to. Well, I guess they already have. They're kind of these days, if you want to watch a movie, what are you doing? You're not popping a DVD.
Apple TV, yeah,
exactly. Everything
I
is
still
true.
go to Redbox.
Is there Fonash
I don't know why.
Flicks?
I don't know why to go to
Fonash Flicks. Kind of. So what we do is we stream everything. That's like
apparently that was really funny.
That took a second. Sorry, I didn't thank you. That's funny.
I might have to copyright that. That's pretty good.
Got you, buddy.
I like that.
Oh, it's recorded.
I'll send you royalties. That's true. That's true.
Send me royalties. $1 per gig uploaded.
Okay. All right. We'll negotiate on that. But yeah, so DVDs, Blu-rays, physical media like that, it's nice to have. It's nice to have that actual copy, but it's getting so hard to play these days because just nobody has a player, in their house. So that's a little difficult. Then it kind of went to like USB drives, USB sticks, which are also good. You're actually, you're getting something tangible. But these days you can just download everything. So what we do is there's a company out there in California, and they make kind of like it's everything's streamed. So, but it's instead of just sending them like a link to a video on like Vimeo or YouTube, it's in like a menu format. So it's really like user friendly, and they can click on the highlights and then click on scene selection and go to each of their scenes in their doc edit and everything. Cool. So yeah, so it's kind of like a it's like a nice way to watch it and not just like kind of like click a link or something like that. But everything is getting towards just online and downloads and things like that.
So is it like an app that they have to put on their phone or Apple TV or something, and then they just like click on it and that's where their wedding video lives? Like what do you mean there's like no link to it?
So yeah, so I guess so there is a link. There's one link to that site.
Gotcha.
So the client has like a custom website per se.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and then that remains on their servers on their cloud forever. They can take ownership of that, and they can always access it from their phone or their iPad. There's an Apple TV app, so it's pretty cool.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah, because it's funny because I'm always, and we could, I could talk about 4K and all these resolutions and stuff, and I always laugh when people online are chatting about the new specs on their on the cameras, but then probably 80% of these people are watching them on their phones or iPads. So I always encourage going back to the old school on the TV, sitting on the couch, pour yourself a glass of wine, have good audio. That's the best way to watch your film. Cool. It's nice you can do it on your phone and things, but getting back to just sitting on your couch, that's probably the best way.
And think about it too. You are, when you watch your video as a couple, you're reliving those moments, right? Like snuggle up, like Kev said, get some wine, make some popcorn, like just dive in and go back to those moments, go back to that time, right? And just like relive those things. And that to me is what I like the most about video is you as the couple are only in so many places at once that day, right? And photo and video very much gives you more of the story because you only have, so much memory and like database in your head to like really remember all that happens. And that looking back at your photos and looking back at your video, you're able to see those little things that like, oh, that face that your grandma was making at like, or that as you were walking down the aisle, what your dad's face looked like if he was walking with you. Like, think about that. Like, that's a beautiful thing that maybe you were just like looking around and looking at all the people, but then to have that moment and see that, God, it hits you in the heart in a way that I think is just completely invaluable. And it's videography to me is easily one of those things that couples can cut from the list of things because it's just not a necessity. And I can argue that flowers and many other things aren't a necessity, but it's things you do to enhance the day. But videography feels more selfish, right? It feels more for the couple after the fact. So it's easy to say, well, gosh, maybe, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't do that because we are doing photography. But guys, I'm telling you, it is always, always at the top of the list of most regretted decisions that couples have made after a wedding, that they wish they just did video. And it's like what Dan is saying is like he wishes he has his best man's speech, all those things,
Yeah. I mean, think about how much people, how much sentiment is surrounded by home movies, right? Like think about like what is it, 8mm? Is that what that was? Like the old, old style films?
Yeah. There was 8, I think 16. That was before my time, but
yeah. Well, I mean, even it was before my time too. But I definitely remember my parents having this old school projector and these little tapes that you'd literally have to like feed through.
No audio.
I know. Yeah, no audio. Like I know that future generations they're gonna have no clue what that stuff is. But what about like there? Still, I think that holds true, right? Like home movies. Especially when curated of this special time, right? Like it's going to be different now because we have our phones all the time. We're pushing that button, but still, I still think there's something to be said. Like people still value photography. A lot of my couples who are younger still value photography so much, even though they're constantly taking pictures with their phones. And I still think it's said to be true about videos that these videos. Yes, they might be for the couple, but if you're going to have kiddos one day, imagine being able to look back in 30 or 50 years for yourselves, or maybe when your kids are 20 or 30 and being able to literally see, the same expression on your significant other's face and being able to say, wow, I'm so glad that that you still look at me like that 30 years later or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think this is something that you do yet, Kev, though I definitely see it happening in your future. But I've actually seen on 2 occasions now where the videographer has shot all day, and there's somebody else on site that is editing that footage. That by the end of the
same
night,
day edits.
yeah, we have played Dan is shaking his head. Hold on, Dan. We've played the video of the day for all the guests, and people have gone wild just like watching it. But Dan, why are you shaking your head? No, you don't like that.
I don't like it either.
Okay, let's talk about it. Why?
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Dan,
Kevin.
Dan, you can go first.
I'm gonna say I don't like it because aside from the people just being there or whatever, the day is not about the video. It's not about the photos. It's a wedding day. So
That's fair.
what are you missing by taking time out to view this thing, better than just like letting the day happen, right?
Just
like,
enjoy what's happening. Yeah.
Right. I say this all the time that like the wedding day is not a giant staged photo shoot. Yeah, we're going to set up that time, that like hour or whatever to get those photos of the two of you, and that's awesome. But like, imagine if I like did that slideshow. I mean, I don't know. Like, I definitely think there's something cool to be said about like, one, it's an awesome marketing opportunity for videos and photographers. Two, it's like cool to like get that instant gratification about what just happened, continue building excitement. But I also wonder like again, what are you missing by taking out the time to like view this video or the photo slideshow of what just happened? What are you missing by doing that? You know, like, couldn't you be connecting more with your guests who are there to see you? Couldn't you be spending more time with your grandmother and like getting photos like that? Like, why is it that we have to stop and look at the stuff that which we all just witnessed anyway?
Yeah, I totally agree. I really do. I mean, so this was a trend that came up, a couple of years ago. I did it once, and it was just a pain in the butt because I don't remember. I think I was editing and maybe Martina was shooting at the time. She's my business partner who always works with me. So I was taking myself away from things that I could have been doing. And you're doing you're trying to get it out as fast as you can. So it's not the best quality that you can make. And when we're watching on the screen, I just felt like I was like trying to like toot my own horn or something like that, and like you said, why are we rewatching the ceremony that we all just witnessed 3 hours ago? I rather take all that footage, take it home, sit down, really spend time on it, and then put something out maybe a week later or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of same day edits. Sorry, Danielle.
Guys, you just shot me down so hard and in such a valid way. I got nothing. Point well made. Yikes.
They're big in New Jersey for some reason.
Yeah.
What was that?
I feel like New Jersey, like that's like a big market for same day edits for whatever reason.
Interesting.
Interesting. No
I don't see it too
Jersey.
often. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. The one I did was in PA, but I'm pretty sure actually now that I think about it, the videographers were probably from Jersey. And the other one was the wedding I actually was a guest at in Mexico. So they just kind of had it like playing on a loop when everybody was on the dance floor, but it was set up in a way that was like designed for it. So it was cool. But never mind. Forget that idea. But hey, it's an option, and
it's an option.
And
sure.
Dan and Kevin both just made really valid points and I think the biggest thing is like, what are you missing by doing this? So like, to me, as I never thought of it from that perspective, but I was like, ooh, shiny thing, and that's really cool, and like, ooh. But no, you make a really great point. So well said, guys. Way to shoot me down.
All right, so if that's like a negative thing that we don't like, Kevin, what are some of your favorite things that just in general you've seen at weddings, or some of the things you've witnessed that you really, really love?
Just general things. I mean, just those natural moments that just people connecting and, we're trying to, I know you offer this, Dan, rehearsal dinner coverage.
Yep.
We're trying to really push that and do some of that, capture that the day before.
Yeah.
Take the couple out for like an engagement video type thing where we can really ask them those questions about, their relationship and what they see in each other and their goals for the future. Because I think that's kind of what's coming towards the next step in wedding filmmaking, is not just focusing on the wedding day itself, but focusing on the day before, maybe the day after, and really just diving into the couple. And who they are and who they are in that moment. So I think that's what's going to be the next big thing. And it just makes such a much more in-depth film. But in terms of So what things I just see at a wedding day that it.
Yeah, it's just if you're thinking back over all the weddings you've done since, was it 2013 or 2012 or something like that? Is there any like videography aside? Is there anything that like just floats to the top that you're like, man, that was awesome, or like any moments that you're just like, I am so glad I got to be a part of that kind of stuff.
Oh, geez, there's
the juicy details.
There's so many things. I mean, I don't know. Just something that popped in my head is we got to take pictures on a boat one time. So it was a beautiful sunset right after the ceremony. So we, their hair's blowing and stuff. It just looked really, really good. Just different raw moments. And it's hard to really pinpoint like one thing because each wedding is different. A lot of it comes down to the venue and where you are and the location. I love, exploring different areas and going to different places and just, meeting new people. But yeah, it's I think my style and the things, I feel like I'm a pretty sentimental person. So I think a lot of our films are more a little on, I don't want to say on the slower side, but we try to use like, really cinematic music and things. And when people are crying or the bride gives her mom a gift and she's in tears, like to me, I'm just like, boom, like this is
gold.
This is right up my alley. Like I got to get this, I got to make this, I got to really retell this story. So I think a lot of those like really touching, not sad, but just, on the emotional side. Yeah. Meaningful. Yeah. That's really what I strive off of. And when I'm in a wedding like that and everything's going well and the shots are looking great, I'm just like, I can't wait to edit this.
I feel like, so the last wedding we worked together, Kevin, a few weekends ago, Dad, the father of the bride in particular, was a crier in like a beautiful way. Like he was a bag of emotions that day and just feeling it all. And just, you could see the love and the joy on his face. And like, even at the rehearsal we did the night before, he was already bawling. So I can only imagine, I feel like you must have like seen him and been like, score.
Exactly. Did you see the first look I posted on Instagram?
I didn't. Did you?
Yeah.
Or I'll have to check that out. For shizzle. Very cool.
Yeah, it's she was. It was the dad first look, and same thing. He was a crier, and it just came out so beautifully. And I'm just, and in your head, you're kind of editing in your head, and you're thinking where you're going to put this and how it's going to play out, and it just gets you excited to piece it all together and show them.
For sure. And this goes back to, Dan and I talk about this a lot. The details are great, guys. The details will support your day and make it beautiful, but the moments and the emotions and the people are what make your wedding day amazing.
Exactly.
Your answer, I think, it gave me an idea for another question. And that's, well, let me just segue into this by saying like that's awesome to hear that like that's what you love, right? Like those little things that like are giving you the warm and fuzzies inside, right? And that's what I think like, what you're trying to get out of any wedding pro that, you guys out there are trying to hire is like looking for those things that like there's definitely photographers and videographers and, all different wedding professionals who are like, they're just trying to make money, right? Like they don't care about the craft, right. Or maybe they do to some side of sort of things, but like hearing you, let me put it this way. I think you can sniff out the BS. People out there can sniff out the BS right away when somebody's just like in it and their heart's not in it. And I love that you like just have a passion for it and you like get excited when you like when I get an awesome picture. One of the things that you'll like in my Wedding Wire reviews is like I literally am just like yes, like very verbal about it because it's awesome, right? Like it's an instant gratification. So that leads me to my next question, which is as our listeners are going out there and they're interviewing videographers, what steps would you suggest that they take in like starting to search, and then when they start meeting with people, what questions would you suggest that they ask videographers when they're sitting down with them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would always start with watching some of their films.
Yep.
So I would, sit down, have, don't do it when you're rushed or stressed or whatever. Just, sit down, you and your couple, you and your partner, and watch some of those films. And like Danielle was saying before, if you probably don't know these people, but if you can engage yourself in their story. If you're getting emotional, chances are that that's how your wedding film is going to turn out.
Yeah.
So start with that. And if you like their style, you like their, the length and things like that, just poke around their website. And then maybe set up a consultation with them and just discuss things further. Talk about things like how much do you plan versus just letting things happen.
Yeah.
Talk about the budget. Talk about, I can make you a really great highlights film, but do I have to pay extra, or is it included for, the whole ceremony? Or am I going to get the speeches? Am I just going to get a couple shots of my parent dances, or am I going to get the entire, 6 minutes of it?
Gotcha.
I would maybe ask to see a whole film, so a whole doc edit, if that's what's included, or a whole feature film, or whatever they call it. Because I think a lot of times, especially with maybe some of the more people that are just starting out, they can make a really great 2 to 3 minute highlights film. It's not that hard to throw a bunch of clips together and put a song behind it. But what does the rest of the stuff look like?
Right.
So,
right.
So that's also something to keep in mind. And really just, I think the work a lot of times speaks for themselves. And like you were saying before about, if you choose somebody who is really passionate about what they do, and they really just love weddings, and they just love making something that people are really going to like, versus a company that maybe, spits out 100 a year or something like that. And again, nothing wrong with that. That's their business model, and that's that's the couples that they cater to. But it all just comes down to style and what you're comfortable with, what your budget is, and just what you're looking for ultimately in a wedding film.
That reminds me a lot of like with photography, couples or photographers who are really awesome at like the portrait part of things, but it's like, no, can I see a whole wedding collection as well? And it's like, how do you handle a dark reception venue where you have to use flash or whatever? It's like, no, I want to see, like, if this 10-minute thing that you're going to give me, like, I want to see one of those and see what that all looks like. I didn't think about that before. Like, you might be really good at like this like 2 to 3 minute edit, but as you're trying to tell a story over the course of like a 10 minutes, good to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And there's
that's only on Danielle's channel.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, so we're okay. She would not be,
but Kevin won't be, because Kevin's going to be on the same audio as me, right, Dan?
No, he's on the same audio as me.
Oh, okay, then never mind. Plow on, guys. Assholes.
Continue.
Stop it.
Assholes. Oh, there goes our explicit rating, Danielle.
You won't put that in.
Yeah. No.
So, what do you want me to just lead? You want to lead me into something?
Yeah. Was there anything else you want to talk about? My next thing that I think we were just going to say is like, how can people get in touch with you or like learn more about you? But was there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I just wanted to maybe touch on, kind of tying into the last question a little bit about, there's so many things behind the scenes of a videographer that I think people don't realize and people don't understand. Not that they have to. They don't need to know all the technical background and things like that. But even little things like, lighting or not little things, but huge things about lighting and audio and how we capture those toasts and the best audio for speeches and things like that, the letter readings. There's so many things on the back end. And so, again, when you're looking for a videographer, make sure that they have really clean, good audio. Make sure you can hear. It's not overmodulated. It's not buzzing. It's, the audio too many times I think goes to, it's people think it's less important, where I'm the opposite. And I think it's almost more important than the video itself in certain circumstances. So definitely just watch the entire film and really just try to pick out all those different things. And if you watch that and you're like, man, they nailed it, again, chances are they're going to nail your wedding film too. And you're going to be happy with that product.
Love it.
Awesome.
So is there, our listeners out there, all the ringers out there, where can we find you and learn a little bit more about you?
Yeah. So let's see.
Fonashflix.com.
Yeah, but I'm going to go see if that's available in copyright.
Please do
Buy
that
domain. Yeah, they can find me on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Fonash Studios. Instagram @Fonash Studios. That's FONASH Studios, all one word. Yeah, we're on Instagram, Facebook, our website. Love to. And honestly, I just love to talk about this stuff. Martina, my business partner, and I, we have our own podcast that we're trying to get going here. We only have a couple episodes. Cool. But honestly, if anybody, has any advice or wants any advice about wedding videography, even if they're not one of our couples, I'd love to just, chat with them and try to steer them in the right direction.
Yeah. Cool. What's the name of your podcast, Kev?
It's what is it?
Guys, it's really creative. Just wait for it.
The Video and Photo Podcast.
Wedding Video and Photo Podcast.
See, I don't even know. We only did 2 episodes so far.
It's good though.
The Wedding Video and Photo Podcast.
Yeah.
We're gonna interview a bunch of different photographers and just kind of talk about the imagery aspects of a wedding, because so much ties in with the photo and the video.
You should really interview planners too. Just saying.
And I'm sure we'll have it.
Actually, your first episode, if you guys have enjoyed what Kevin's saying and you want to learn more about him, the first episode of that podcast, him and Martina, they're both on there. They get into like a little bit about themselves, and they show even more of their personalities. I listened to it a few weeks ago, and it was awesome. So I definitely encourage y'all to go check it out for Shizzle Mo Nizzle.
What you should probably do is change the name to Wedding Photography and Video and Planners and Florists and Caterers Podcast.
And Fonash Flicks Podcast.
I don't see anything wrong with that. I think
it's kind of it's kind of just like everything throughout the wedding day, but what kind of ties into the imagery aspects and what we see from that back end.
I think it's awesome. I was just kidding. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring the planners there. All right, thank you, Kevin, so much. We so appreciate having you here. I'm so excited, and guys, if you're listening and you want to talk to him more, send him your questions. He's a very cool guy to chat with, and he will definitely steer you in the right direction for sure.
Cool. Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.